Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm out at the XeroLinux website to talk about XeroLinux. So XeroLinux is a Arch distribution that's based on Arco Linux. And this is a personal project that was kind of taken on by Dark Zero, and this person has decided to share it with the world. It looks like a really interesting spin of Arch here, and something I'm really kind of excited about looking at. So as it says on the website here, an eye candy's lover's wet dream, which is a creation by Dark Zero. So we're going to find out just how wet that dream is. If we roll on here, you can see here under the About XeroLinux that it is an Arch-based distro with KDE Plasma Desktop, a personal project I'm working on that I thought I would share in case someone out there shares my passion for building Linux. It comes in two flavors, Core Edition and Main Edition. The difference between the two, you may ask? Well, Core is just Arch and vanilla KDE with drivers installed unlocked for you to select the right ones for your hardware, whereas the Main has all the bells and whistles, like a full custom rice complete with Latte Dock and theme, all the way over to customized settings. So this looks really cool. Apparently, they're not using the Plasma dock or panel at all, but rather Latte Dock. So that's going to be interesting right off the bat. The Core Edition is available in case you want to just kind of do everything for yourself and just really kind of start from scratch and build up. However, the XeroLinux Main is already pimped out for you, riced and XeroLinux-ified. So this one's a bit long in the tooth to describe, as it says here. Suffice it to say that this one is where you get all the bells and whistles. It's got so many that you'll have to read the entire release notes to get the big picture. Wow. And then they have it here in the nutshell as Intel VMD support, NVIDIA on boot, Wayland support, Pipewire, Pulse both available, Wacom tablet support, new sysconfig tool, refreshed rice, Paru helper, which is the ARUR helper, package selection, and more. Awesome. And then there's a little bit of a gallery down here. This looks like the boot up system here, the grub menu, and then this is a little peek at the desktop. Really interesting. And I'm liking the color scheme already there. And I thought I saw Vivaldi browser, so that's probably the default. Here's the download link, so I'm going to go ahead and download this. I'm at XeroLinux.xyz, by the way, and of course I have the link in the description below. So let's download this thing, and initially I'm going to load it into VirtualBox to run through the installer, because I think the installer here is probably pretty interesting too. And then after that, I'm actually going to install this onto real hardware, and we're going to evaluate this on real hardware and not in a virtual environment. I'm only going to be in VirtualBox just long enough to go over the installer. So let's get to it. I'm going to download this ISO right now, and I'll be right back. Right now I am on the machine. I have it installed on hardware already, but before we take a look at it though, I want to jump into VirtualBox here and show you what I did to install this. Because actually the install process was really cool. And so I was really impressed with the installer. So here I'm loading it into VirtualBox right now. And I made a virtual drive and all the usual stuff that you do when you set up a VirtualBox to do the install for Linux. And then of course for my video card, I just had it set all the way up to 120 megabytes, 128. So here we are in our live version here in VirtualBox. And so as you can see, it looks kind of similar. And our welcome screen, and of course here's our Latte Dock again. So right off the bat in the VirtualBox, it looks great right from the start. So a great first impression right from here. And here I'm going to go ahead and start the XeroLinux installer. And that looks awesome really right off the bat. So everything about this so far is just speaking to me. So we're going to start out with the Arch kernel, which is the newest version and will probably be the newest one on the ISO. Then I'm going to check Intel U code. That's what I checked for the processor U code, because the machine I'm installing it on is an Intel. Of course, I'm in VirtualBox right now, but I'm repeating the steps that I did when I installed it onto the hardware. And so here we have our Optimus Manager, which is great for hybrid systems that have both an Intel and NVIDIA GPU switching capability, and then also has capabilities for the Ryzen kernel and the NVIDIA, Nouveau, and then Intel GPU drivers, which I want to check because my machine has an Intel driver. I think it's an HD 530. And of course on VirtualBox, it's not relevant. And then here's our audio drivers we can select from. And it has both choices here, Pipewire and Pulse. I'm just going to check them both because Pipewire is really awesome, but it's not quite ready to run on its own yet. So I'm just going to have them both in there. And then printing support, I'm going to go ahead, check both of those too. Have our cups and HP support, which I'm glad to see too. And then here's some special drives if you have a fingerprint device or you need special drivers for like a Realtek card, like the networking card. So that's nice to have too, because there are some certain Realtek cards out there that do give problems to people sometimes. Then we have our Android OS support. These are apps that are available that we can just kind of install right off the bat, which I really like that, because I can have this running my way right off the bat, because by default it's pretty bare bones somewhat, and so these are additional apps in addition to what's already on there. And so if I wanted to add an audio player, we could do that here. And then audio editors, and I'd like to add Audacity because that's not installed by default, I'm assuming, because it's in this extra list here. And then under other audio tools, we got Rhythm Box and all that good stuff. Down here we got benchmarking tools, Dev Studio, so we can add in like Visual Studio Code, maybe Genie, that's always a good editor, kind of an all-around winner. Although probably Kate is on here by default, being that it's KDE, but why not? And let's add Vim in here too, along with the runtime and plugins. And then we have our disk and USB tools. Etcher is a great one, so I'm going to go with that. Gparted is also something I like. And then Whoa USB GUI. Wow, that's impressive. That's actually a great utility for creating Windows boot devices for Windows machines. Nice. Or like Windows OS. And here we got our Graphics Studio, we got Blender, Flameshot, that's a nice screenshot utility, but it already comes with a screenshot, so yeah. And then GIMP and Inkscape, of course, and Krita, nice. Now let's go the browsers. Let's see what we got. We got Brave, Chromium, Epiphany. Wow, lots of great choices here. Firefox, of course, and wow, SeaMonkey, Tangram, Tor, Browser, and Web App Manager. Lots of stuff. I'm going to go with Brave here. And then let's see what we got for Office suites. FreeOffice, Libre, and WPS. That's impressive. Nice. Let's do FreeOffice just to be different this time. And then on our package managers, by default, I believe we have Pamac installed. But if you want to add some extras here, we got Discover, Flatpak. That's always handy. I think I'll just check that. And then we got GNOME Software, Octopi, and Snapd. So if you want to include Snapd there, you could just check that as well. And I like that you get a choice off the bat. Password managers, I like KeePass. That's a really good cast, but you can't go wrong with any of them actually. And then you got choices here for remote desktop. Remina is a really good one, and one I would typically choose if I'm going to use remote. Then we got our terminal emulators. So if you want to add something to what's already on there, you got Alacrity and all this. I believe it comes with Yawakauki. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And also the KDE default. And here we got utilities, so you can load in Variety, which is a nice background manager. We got our different themes we can install in here, like Arc. Arc's good, Dracula, Nordic, Sweet, nice. Can never have too many themes. And then under utilities, let's see what we got here. We have App Image Launcher. That's handy. I kind of like app images. Barrier, B-top, H-top. There we go. Want to include that for sure. And Putty, Solar, V-top, Wireshark. Lots of great stuff to choose from. This is really impressive. And then here we got video tools. So we got our different players that we can add on. Hypnotics there, I think I'll go with that. That's a nice, kind of like a TV app for live TV streaming and so forth from all over the world. Then video editors. Let's see. Normally I would install OBS Studio and probably KDE Live there. And they also have Shotcut. That's cool. I think I'll add that in as well. But KDE Live, for me, it's kind of a toss-up between Shotcut and KDE Live. I a lot of times switch back and forth between the two. Then we have video converters, Handbrake, and MKV Toolnix. That's a really handy. I like the GUI there. And then we got VirtualBox, and that's something that I always check when it's available. And then Wine All-in-One. That's cool. The All-in-One, I believe, has all the different things you need in there for Wine, like mono and all that, if I remember right from when I installed it on my desktop. So now I'm just going to go ahead and just erase the disk and go next, and then just type in my name. The main reason I wanted to run through this installer was just to kind of show you all those options that were available for the utilities. Yeah, I can't walk and type at the same time. But okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit install and let it install, and then I'll pop back right after it's done. Okay, so it's all finished now. I'm going to go ahead and just hit restart system. Of course, I'm not actually going to restart it into VirtualBox because I'm going to the live machine now that you saw the whole process. So I'm just hitting this here and just kind of let it do its thing, and then off to our real machine. This is what the actual boot up looks like. It's got a theme on there, which is cool. And then it takes you here, and as you can see at the login screen, you got Wayland by default, and got a little screen tearing going on. And that's something I run into all the time on Arch with Plasma. And so I do have a video that shows you how to take care of that screen tearing if you're using OBS Studio. So you can check that video. I got a link below. Okay, I'm back on my real desktop now. I'm on the machine. And so let's jump in here and see what we got. As you can see right off the bat, we got this nice configuration tool and all these different things available related to NVIDIA and so forth. Here's our console. We got Snapper, so if you want to set up Snapper or Time Shift, another choice. You can set it up here so you can get nice snapshots and backups of your configs. And then extra packages here. We got gaming all-in-one installer here with Steam, Heroic, Lutris, and Proton, the latest version of Proton, which is great for gamers. And then we also got MS Edge. So if you are a Microsoft Edge fan for some strange reason, then you can download it there. And to be fair, Edge is pretty fast. And then the Surface kernel, which I'm not really sure what that was, but anyway, that is our config tool. And a pretty handy looking one at that. So let's explore a little bit and see what's going on. Up here, I just hit F12, and this is our Yawakauki. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And here we got a readout of what we got here. And check out the blur in the background. I love that blur effect. That's really gorgeous. And the color scheme on here is really nice as well. And here it's shown that we're running the latest kernel, 5.15.5, and a lay-in dark theme, and Pac-Man and all that. And that this is an Inspiron that we are installed on. And so wonderful. I really like having the F12, the Yawakauki up there. That's kind of one of my favorite features, I think, here on KDE, is having that. So running HTOP, we can see that we're running at about 1.2 gigs, which actually is really good because I'm running OBS Studio here right now. And so even with OBS Studio, we're at 1.2 gig. However, when I first booted up, when we were running clean, I went and I did a screenshot. And let me just open that up here. There's Thunar. So I can pop in here And I'll just hit F12 again to close the terminal. And jump down here to pictures. And here I took a screenshot. And so let's just open that up real quick. And so what our memory usage was 816 megs. And it was actually smaller than that before I opened up the screenshot software. But the screenshot software actually took up a little bit more. But that is really impressive. I mean, with all this bling and blur and effects and everything, it's still using under 800 at idle, and 816 here with the screenshot software that I used to get the screenshot. So that's really impressive. The resource usage on there really surprised me. I wasn't expecting it to be that good, actually. So another big plus for XeroLinux. Here's our, I forgot what they call this again, but here's where we can kind of see all our screens, projects that are open. And then we have our apps. And there's everything that's open again. And so here's our Dolphin browser. And here we can see beautiful look here. I love the theme with the purple folders and everything, and the blur again on the menus. And over here in show additional information, and we got show panels, that's what I want. And I'm going to click on this information. I like having that little information panel there in Dolphin. That's one thing I think is kind of cool. And there's a picture of our screenshot again. So that all kind of shows up there in that information panel, which is cool. And then we got Vivaldi browser, looks like installed by default. Of course, I added Brave during the install. Then we got console, which is our terminal here, our default terminal for KDE. So we got access to this in addition to the Yawakauki up above. And again, you can see that beautiful blur in the background. Just everything about this says gorgeous. There's our system settings, our disk utility. So this is just kind of showing us everything that we have on here, our hard drive, CD-ROM, and then I still have a thumb drive installed there. But these are the partition layouts here. And it's kind of looks like the utility you kind of see in Windows, except it's probably way better. And that is our Grub customizer here. So logging in, just come over here and look at this guy. And here we can kind of look at, this is our menu that we see when we boot up here. Our XeroLinux is our first choice, and then advanced options. And here we can change anything in the general settings and our boot entry here. So if you don't want to wait for 5 seconds, that's the default, but you could crank that down to 1 second if you want and have an even shorter boot up. And then here under our appearance settings, by default we're running that CyberPi. And that CyberPi that you saw, that was that red kind of theme menu that we saw when I was booting up there through VirtualBox. But that's the same thing. Of course, it looks better on the real machine because it's like full screen. And then these are all different kind of themes, I guess, that you can choose from. This is what we looked at here when I booted the VirtualBox. And so that's kind of a little preview window, which is nice. And then you got Starfield, so if you want to change it, you can, but I don't think I will because I'll probably hose something. And so down here, there's our add remove software, so we can look at our software center, which I believe is Pamac, and looking nice right off the bat. And as you can see from the 3 red trash cans there, those are already installed. And Shotwell must have been installed by default. That's a picture editor, I think. Let's do Inkscape. And Inkscape is installed. Good. I checked that during install, and you can see it's the latest version 1.1.1.3. Nice. And then if we go here and we jump into our preferences and just kind of sign in there. And here we got our settings here for checking for updates, which is all good. I would stay with default there. We got 4 parallel downloads, which is pretty decent. And then under advanced, I don't think I would change anything here that I can see. And then under third party, of course, I'd want to enable this, the AUR support, because I like having AUR support in here too. And I like changing my build directory too. Instead of having it, because I have my drives separately partitioned, my home drive is on the big partition. So I'd rather put like a temp folder here on the big partition. I'll just call it temp, have that in my home folder. And so we'll just have that there. And so for me, that's just kind of my own thing. And then flat pack, I'm going to enable that. I like flat pack. And then you can also enable snap support. And yeah, I mean, I don't use snaps as much as flat pack, but it's nice that you have that option right out there. And that's probably because I checked it when we were installing too. So there's Blender, and as you can see, that was installed by default. And that's the latest version, 2.9.3 or 93. And then here's Thunar. This is another thing I think is cool. We have two different file managers here, Thunar and Dolphin, to choose from. And personally, I like Thunar just a little better. I guess because I'm an XFCE fan too, but I think Thunar is a really nice, powerful browser. And up here is our global menu. So you can see our Thunar menu up here. And then in the middle, we got, of course, our clock, and then a weather app, which is really cool. It's not 12 degrees out here, though. It's closer to 1. It's right around freezing. So I don't think that's actually detecting for my area. So probably I would have to maybe manually set that, I'm guessing, maybe in the settings there. And then we got our Pamac tray here, our sys tray. However, that weather app looks pretty nice. So over here in our sys tray, we got our Pamac tray and our volume, and then Bluetooth and devices, microphone, which I'm using right now, network settings, and then our hidden icons. So we have our notifications here, display, battery and brightness, and all this good stuff. Printers, everything's all just kind of set up for us, and really beautiful menu. And here's our log out and shut down and all that. And then over here we got our menu. And I like this. This is a nice simple menu, and this all comes with the Latte Dock. And this is actually what we're looking at right now, is the Latte Dock. And then we got this menu widget here on the side. And very straightforward. This is different than the standard one that's in the KDE panel. And I really like this menu, actually. I like it that it's very straightforward. It shows me what I want to see. And of course, we got that beautiful blur effect in the background again. And for me, this is just really the perfect menu. And so here's Brave. I see that got installed no problem. And then there's our GM run. So that's cool. And our lost and found. GM run is a nice quick access to run a program. And also this keyboard shortcut to that is Alt space, I believe. Let me just hit that. Yep, Alt space, and that'll bring that up. So GM run, nice. And we have graphics here. We got Blender, Flameshot, GIMP, and Inkscape and all that. And here's Audacity and Hypnotics, which we installed during install, and OBS Studio too. And there's Hypnotics. So Hypnotics is a pretty cool streaming program. And so you got all these TV stations like Retro.
Very nice.
And so, wow, that's cool. And by the way, I went in at login and I selected Xorg for my session instead of Wayland, because Wayland still gives me problems on certain apps. And this is one of the apps. Wayland this won't work in Wayland. It'll just give you a blank screen. So if you're seeing nothing, it's probably because you're in Wayland. And also my OBS Studio didn't work, which is weird, because it's made for Wayland, because I'm running the latest 27 dot something. So I don't know what the deal is with that, but it works fine in Xorg. So yeah, I still think Wayland's not quite ready for prime time. I'm going to click on this Office program here. This is like the equivalent to Excel. And so here you got your choices up here where you can have a ribbon set menus or your classic memory menus. And a lot of people like the classic menus. I think I'll just go with the default ribbon one there just because it's the default. But whatever you choose here, you can actually change it later on. Here it says you can change or reassign at any time in the options menu under Appearance tab. So that's good to know. So this looks a lot like MS Office, at least how I remember it. Haven't used it in a long time, MS, but really nice. Looks great, actually. So then back in our menu, if we go to settings, here we have File Manager settings and Grub Customizer. A lot of the stuff we already kind of went over already. So that's nice there. And then here's our system stuff, our Dolphin and Gparted, which we installed, HTOP, LS hardware, so you can look at your hardware, VirtualBox, print settings, and setting up a printer is easy peasy in Linux anymore, where there's not really any real headaches. Oh, nice. That kind of covers that. And then we have our utilities here. There's our etcher that we installed, code, calculator, Kate, ePass, and find, Latte Dock. And speaking of Latte, we'll have to look at those settings here in a little bit. And Wine Tricks and Wine, excellent. So it really did do a complete job getting Wine installed there too. That's nice. So if we go and edit our Latte Dock, all I did was right click there and hit Edit Dock. And here we can set all our different things like our behavior settings here. We could actually move this down to the bottom and the dock would be down there at the bottom. Of course, we already have another Latte Dock, which looks like the plank. So I'd probably have to move that. And we can have it on the side here, like in Unity. So you got access to it like that. And Latte is really configurable, just like anything in KDE. So if I were to like hit Edit Dock here again, I can move this again back to the top where it was. And then there's all kinds of other things you can do. Like, got all these settings down here, environment and all that. A lot of these things, most of us would probably never use, but I love having choices. And we're in advanced mode right now, so we get to see everything. And I like that it's there by default. So here's where we can adjust the length of our bar. So right now it's at 90%, but if I wanted it all the way across, you can see now that it goes across the whole screen. And especially if you had this bar at the bottom and you wanted more of a traditional look with your 3-panel setup, then you could have that. And I just got rid of the margin there so it hugs the top more. And then here we got our shadows and different tweaks here we can see. I'm trying to get out of the way. So now you can see I made it more opaque, so it looks more like a bar. And if I put it down here on the bottom, you can see now it has that traditional look. And let me just scooch up a little bit. And you can see the global menu is still there though. So if I had this on the bottom, I'd probably remove that global menu because that actually works better on top. However, if we just return it back up there, pop, there we go. Now it has the same look, but it's up on top. And the global menu actually works much better up there. It looks more natural. Like I said, I probably would remove that. That's a widget, by the way. When you want to add a widget to this bar, all you do is right click, hit add widgets, and stick one up there, which I'll do in a little bit. So here's the add widget. I'm just going to set our opacity back again, kind of make that semi-transparent. And that's probably a good place. And then just kind of bring this back to 90. And just kind of putting it back roughly the way it was, just to keep consistent with the theme of our review. But I'm really loving what I'm seeing here so far. And Latte Dock is really not that hard to work with. It's actually pretty easy once you get the hang of it. It looks a little intimidating sometimes at first, but really easy to work with. And then let's check out our system settings. So here under Appearance, you can see it shows a menu there, but see that? Psych. When you try to hover over it, it's not a menu. So it's just a preview of what's in here. So you actually got to click on it to get in there. And so here we can see all our different global themes. And right now our global theme is the lay-in theme. And so you can see that is selected. And then here we got our application style. So if you want to change your button style and all that. And then here's our Plasma style. So here you can kind of change the theme and the look of your apps without actually changing everything. Or actually it probably changes your menus and stuff without actually changing everything. Whereas the global will change the entire deal. So I'm going to just bring up Thunar here. And I like that pop behind effect too. So anyway, if I were going to change it to like say oxygen and hit apply here, you can see it looks the same here. But if you go up to the menu, then you can see that it's dark because we're in our Plasma style. If I change that in the global theme, then that would be like changed everywhere. I'm going to go with Dracula. I like that theme. And that looks better on the menu. I like the dark with the silvery gray there. And if we want to get more, we just hit Get Plasma Style. And then here you can see all these guys. And I like to actually sort this by most popular. So I'm going to just hit Recent here and highest rated. That's what I mean. And so now we can see our highest rated. And it looks like Sweet KDE is still #1. And we got Rounded. That's cool. So if you want to like adjust your theme to look like Deepen, that looks very Deepen-like to me. So I think Rounded would be a nice one. Not sure how well that would work with Latte because I think Rounded is probably intended for the actual KDE panels. So yeah, but let's try it anyway. See how it looks. And I think the windows are more rounded here, but yeah, it didn't really affect the Latte Dock. Well, the submenu, that looks rounded too. I don't remember that being rounded, although it might have been. But yeah, that has more of a rounded look. Nice. But here, not really any change. So yeah, I think that's really intended for the standard KDE panels. And we have Windows decorations. So if you want to change the top of your windows there, like the little open and close buttons and all that, here's where you kind of change your look. So like the Dracula, now you can see which black with our yellow, green, red buttons, which is really a cool look. But again, I'll stay with Layin for the sake of the review. Then we have fonts and then icons. So here, this is what we're running by default is Atella Circle Purple Dark, which is really nice. I like those icons. I don't think I would even change that. But you got these other colors, pink and yellow and green here and blue. And there's Beauty Line, which I think I already had that on there. And then we got our Breeze cursors by default. But if you want a different kind of cursor like this Babada, I think is how that's pronounced. There you go. And instant. Got kind of a cool look to it. But I kind of, yeah, I think the Breeze is probably the best one here. I'll stay with that. And then our font management and splash screens. Splash screens are cool. I really like how KDE has these so you can preview them just by hitting the little play button. So if I hit that, it'll show you that we got a, this is what you would see when you log in. So that's kind of cool. I like that you can do that. Here's Suite. Now by default, there's no splash screen right now. However, let's look at Dracula. Wow, that's cool. Check that out with the bats and stuff. That's neat. Actually, I think I'm just going to switch it to that. I like that. Cool. So typically I don't have a splash screen, but yeah, that's kind of broke the coolness barrier there, so I'm going to go with it. Let's see what we got for effects. What's installed here by, or activated by default. There's our blur, which I really like that look. Now, if you're having issues with resources, you can always turn some of these off, like the blur, and it'll free up some memory if you're kind of short on resources. And this is where you would do that. And oh, there's a slide back. Yeah, that's a really cool effect. I love this slide back thing. When you click on another window to bring it in focus, it slides the other window behind it. That's cool. I like it. That's a great effect. And really cool on the developer's part there to just kind of activate that by default. Oh yes. And then we got our screen edges, touch screen settings, virtual desktops. Wow. So our virtual desktops here, just added in a bunch. And by default there's one, so I'll just put it back there. But it's nice to have more when you need them. Then we have our shortcuts. So here we can set keyboard shortcuts, and we got all our defaults kind of set up here, like for Dolphin, Meta E, K Runner, Alt Shift F2, Yawakauki, or Yakuwaki, I guess is how you pronounce it, Yakuwaki. And then, so F12 is our default. And if you want to change that, that's where you would change that in case it's interfering with a different keyboard shortcut somewhere else. Then you got our startup and shutdown settings. And here again, this is our login screen. Then we got search and notification under personalization and users. And here you can see I set my avatar from Daisy, who is from, let's see, where can you find Daisy? But you can also change it here. Daisy's in Mario Kart, right? Yes, Luigi's always chasing her around. I don't know about that, Luigi. And so, let's see. Here is where, I was gonna, there we go. Yeah, I wanted to show you where I found the custom picture. So this is just a custom face icon I made a long time ago. And so, just hit my password here. That's where you would set your icon if you wanted to put in a custom one rather than one of the default. So that's always cool to know. And then our regional settings, applications, online accounts, user feedback, all this good stuff. And of course, this is pretty much your standard KDE settings that you see in KDE. Our input devices, usually by default, I pop in here and make sure the num lock is turned on, or your keyboard settings. I like that. And our mouse, don't usually have to do anything there. That's always good. And we got game controller and touchpad settings. And keep clicking on the wrong thing there. Then display and monitor. And we're set at 1920 by 1080, but if you need a different resolution or scale or whatever. And then here's our compositor. If for some reason you're on an old machine and it's just bringing it to its knees, all the compositing, you can turn that off and all your effects will be gone. Your transparencies and your shadow. But it'll free up a lot of resources if you're on something old. And we have our dim screen here, our power settings. And so this is pretty much set where I like it. That's good to see. It didn't get too carried away there with a lot of BS. I'm liking it. And our printer settings, removable storage, and system D. And here's our about. So here's another preview, and we can see the XeroLinux logo, which is really nice. I like what he did on that, or she, whatever the case may be. And so here's all our system RAM, 16 gigs of RAM, and Intel HD 530, and so forth. And then all the system D settings, you can see all these different processes related to system D that are kind of running in there. So that is nice as well. So there's our global menu here. So if I go up in a global menu, because that is activated, that's why you see it up there. That was our About Thunar. And if I want to change my preferences, I can go here. And one thing I usually do is I like to change my date format for today. So let's see where that is. I always forget where that is. Oh, there it is. Yeah, right in front of me. So I'm going to change that right there. And then we have our side pane settings, and I see single click is turned off and it's on double click, which I like. Some distros with KDE will default that to single click, and so that's where you would change it if you don't like the single click. That's not real intuitive for some people. And for me, it takes me a little getting used to too. So I like just the traditional double click. So I like the global menu up there being enabled there. I think that's a cool thing to have on the Latte Dock for sure. And then here's our Vivaldi browser, and all installed, and it looks like the XeroLinux homepage there with Dark Zero. Dark Zero, you could be my new hero. You've done a great job here. This is really an impressive setup here you got in your Linux, and I'm so glad you shared it. And finally, let's just take a look at our wallpaper. Let's change that. Our configuration settings here. So here's all our different wallpapers we got to choose from, and your location, your icons, and by default we got them aligned in rows on the desktop. So that's nice. I like that. The traditional way is columns, However, I'm going to leave it in rows because I'm kind of warmed up to that actually. That is cool. Wow, check out that background. Man, that's great. These are really nice wallpapers. And that is cool, that space one. Wow, nice. Yeah, kind of reminds me of an old video game I used to play. Tail Gunner, I think. A vector graphics video game. Wow, that is so nice. Bad to the bone. I think I'm going to keep that one. That is great. Then as we go down farther, it looks like we got another nice one. Zero wall. Wow, so great. Then at the bottom, these look kind of like your standard KDE wallpapers that you would normally find with KDE. But I love these extras that they added in. Wow, what a nice addition. Really makes it pop. That is nice too. Wow. But this background, yeah, that's the winner. I'm gonna go with that for sure. So, man, it said there on the website that this was like the eye candy band's wet dream or something like that. Well, I gotta tell you, it's about as wet as it gets. Because this is wonderful. In fact, this is something I would really be happy to use as a daily driver, and I'm gonna keep it on this machine. I'm gonna go ahead and keep this, and I'm gonna use it. I've always liked XeroLinux anyway, so I know it's on a solid base, but the way Dark Zero here has this configured and set up with a latte and the beautiful artwork, this person really has a sense of color and artistic aesthetics that works. And he's really good at setting things up to look great. And I love that installer. So all in all, I gotta give this not a 1, but a 2 thumbs up, a double thumbs up, for sure. I would highly recommend this for anybody that wants to have a new look, wants to run Arch. And this doesn't get any easier than this to install Arch and then to have it just rise to the max. This is great. So definitely recommend this distro, and I'm gonna keep using it. I love it, and you'll love it too, I'm sure. So go ahead and download it. Jump out to the website, give it a try. And if this video was helpful, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.